Okay, so a Trump DOJ nominee gets put under oath, gets shown his own tweets, and suddenly cannot explain a single one of them. Watch this fall apart. Subscribe before it does.
Mr. Ligris, were you prepared for this hearing?
I did prepare for this hearing, Senator.
You were prepared by the Department of Justice?
I did independent research online as it relates to the Office of Justice programs and the various grant programs.
Before this hearing, were you prepped by the Department of Justice?
And then after that, I did meet with the Department of Justice and conducted moot questions.
During the course of that, did they warn you about, for instance, Senator Kennedy's history with respect to the tweet history of nominees? Did that come up?
No.
Did not come up.
No, Senator Kennedy's question? I'm sorry.
Did they warn you that Senator Kennedy had a history of asking about nominees' tweets?
No.
They didn't. Were they aware of these tweets that have been discussed here in the hearing today?
I don't know. They did not bring it up.
So you have tweets that call Donald Trump and Kamala Harris two clowns. You have tweets that call Senator Murkowski almost as dumb as Kamala. You have tweets that call Senator Collins a fraud. You have tweets that call Senator Padilla, who sits on this committee, a thug. You have tweets that call Senator Schiff a fraud. He also sits on this committee. And you undertook no preparation to face questions about that as you come before the Senate Judiciary Committee?
No, Senator.
You didn't tell the Department of Justice about those tweets?
Senator, I tweet and respond to tweets or repost tweets regularly and frequently.
But you know the stuff is going to be looked at. It gets looked at all the time in hearings. Our expert is Senator Kennedy, but other senators ask questions about people's tweets as well. You're telling me here that you never disclosed to the Department of Justice these tweets about senators who would have to vote on your nomination, and you're telling me that DOJ, as far as you know, didn't even know about them.
I'm telling you that the DOJ never raised these with me.
And you never disclosed them to the DOJ?
No.
Well, let's start with Senators Padilla and Schiff. Do you know what state they represent?
California.
Yeah. And California will very likely be submitting applications for various grant programs to the Office of Justice Programs. Correct?
I would expect.
Yeah. And having called Senator Padilla a thug at least 5 times and Senator Schiff a fraud, what reasonably could they expect about you giving California programs a fair hearing if you're put in charge of OJP?
Every state and every jurisdiction would expect that they would go through the process of applying for grants with the Office of Justice Programs, and those grant applications would be administered and reviewed through the process of the department.
Yeah, that's what they would expect. And then there'd be a guy at the head of the program who thinks that the senators involved are a thug and a fraud. How do you convince us that you're not going to let that personal bias against these two individuals affect your judgment about California programs, particularly programs that, we often write in letters saying, we work with this program, we think they do a good job, please give it every due consideration consistent with your responsibilities. That's a pretty standard thing. How do you respond to a letter from somebody you've called a thug or somebody you've called a fraud when they support a program that you're asked to decide on?
Because I believe that the Office of Justice Programs has a mission to support the entire country, every state and every city, and protect our communities, irrespective of the elected leadership that exists there today or tomorrow.
So just trust me, I guess, is what you're saying.
Well, trust the fact that I have been in the private sector and I was a practicing lawyer for a long time, and I will administer these funds as a good steward for the taxpayers of this country and ensure that they reach the ultimate recipients and the beneficiaries, which are our communities, our law enforcement, victims of crime, our juvenile system.
So why should Judge Boasberg, the chief judge of the D.C. Circuit, be impeached?
I don't have an opinion on Judge Boasberg.
You had one when you twice said that he should be impeached on tweets.
So, Senator, I suspect that you're quoting retweets or comments to other tweets. It would be nice to have...
No, they're your tweets. You're the one who's responsible for them. You're responsible for knowing what you said. Don't put it on us to have to explain to you your own tweets. This is your mess, not ours. You're the one who tweeted impeach him. If you can't explain that, that's on you. But my general question is, why should Judge Boasberg be impeached? Whether you tweeted it or retweeted it, you obviously thought he should be impeached. Why?
It would be helpful for me to see the context of the tweet.
You're the one who's supposed to be ready for these hearings.
So here is the setup. Konstantinos Ligris, the man tapped to lead the Justice Department's Office of Justice Programs, deleted hundreds of offensive posts targeting lawmakers and federal judges, and not random targets. He had been publicly demanding the impeachment of judges who ruled against the Trump administration. That is the person being handed control over federal justice grants. Let that sink in. The job is supposed to be neutral. His entire online history is the opposite of neutral. And this is where Senator Sheldon Whitehouse does something very simple. He puts the record in front of him. Ligris called Senator Padilla a thug. He called Senator Schiff a fraud. He called Trump and Kamala Harris two clowns. He called Senator Murkowski almost as dumb as Kamala. He called Senator Collins a fraud too. Whitehouse did not need a speech. He just read the man his own posts and asked the obvious question: how do you administer grants fairly to states run by people you publicly insulted? That is not a gotcha. That is the entire job description colliding with his timeline. Now, here is the part that should stop you. Ligris admitted, under oath, that he did no preparation to face questions about his social media history. None. And he never disclosed those tweets to the Department of Justice before the hearing. Think about that for a second. He knew this stuff gets looked at. It gets looked at in every hearing. And he walked in anyway with nothing. This is not just one unprepared witness. This is the administration advancing a thoroughly unvetted candidate and hoping nobody opened the timeline. And then came the moment the clip is named after. When Ligris tried to dodge a tweet demanding a judge's impeachment, Whitehouse refused to let him deflect. The nominee asked for context on his own post. And Whitehouse fired back, "This is your mess, not ours. You are responsible for knowing what you said." That was the moment, because the second a nominee asks Congress to explain his own tweets to him, the defense is already gone. Full stop. Here is the hypocrisy nobody should skip past. This man was nominated to serve as the Justice Department's liaison with law enforcement. And records show he once referred to police officers as dumb as dirt in a now deleted post. So the law enforcement liaison insulted law enforcement. Republicans on that committee scrutinize the online history of every Democratic appointee, but when it is their own nominee, the vitriol apparently does not count. That is two-tier accountability, crystal clear. And this is the core of why it matters. Ligris's social media history reveals a deep partisan bias, and that bias raises a real alarm about whether he can fairly administer funds through the Office of Justice Programs. His repeated insults toward Democratic senators, his calls for political retribution against judges, those are not jokes. They are a track record. He stood there and promised to be a good steward for taxpayers. The record says he treats half the country as the enemy. So let me make sure the math is clear. He said, "Trust me, I was a practicing lawyer for a long time. I will administer these funds fairly." But his actual public behavior, the thug, the fraud, the impeach the judge posts, points the opposite direction. They told the committee one thing. The timeline says another. And when an official has the facts on their side, they answer directly. They explain the post, they own it. What Legris did instead was ask for context and hope the clock ran out. Zoom out, because this is the bigger picture. The Legris hearing laid bare the double standard built into how this administration staffs the government. Republicans routinely tear apart the online history of Democratic appointees. Then they send up a nominee who appears completely caught off guard by his own extensive history of online attacks. That is not an accident. That is what happens when loyalty matters more than vetting, and the Senate is the only place left where someone actually checks the record. And there is the transparency problem on top of all of it. Legris admitted he regularly deleted his posts, and his explanation was cybersecurity exposure reasons. Senators were visibly baffled, and you should be too. A man seeking a senior Justice Department role could not recall his own public statements and could not offer a coherent defense of them. That is not a small detail. That is the person you are being asked to put in charge of federal justice money. There is also a clean breakdown here that Whitehouse exposed directly. The DOJ never brought up these controversial tweets during prep. The nominee never disclosed them. So either the department did not look, or it looked and did not care. Both answers are bad. This is the vetting process failing in real time, on camera, in front of the senators who have to vote on him. So here is the line. Next time someone tells you, this nominee is a neutral, qualified, good steward, ask them why he needed Congress to explain his own tweets back to him. The answer is not a mystery. They wanted the appointment. They wanted the loyalist in the chair. But the second Whitehouse put the record on the table, the nominee could not defend a single word he posted. That is the whole story. The facts did the damage. Full stop. I'll see you in the next one.